if you struggle with floating your slices long the whole time, or maybe your slice is just a little bit floaty in general and you want to make it more penetrating, I'm going to help you with those things in this video. The way that we're going to do this, we're going to break it down into 3 parts. The first part, we're going to be talking about the angle of the racket face relative to the ball, because that's kind of the most important thing for you to understand. Then I'm going to talk about and show you different ways that you can practice it. And then the final part is I'm going to talk about some of the things that might be limiting you and preventing you from really turning your slice into a quality shot, even if you are practicing things in the right way. Now, I'm looking forward to making this one for you because slice backhand is my favorite shot. Hopefully you'll enjoy the video and find it useful as well. If you do, it'd be great if you give me a thumbs up. And obviously, if you haven't already done so, really appreciate it if you could subscribe to my channel. So let's start with the important part first. If your slices are floating long, it means that your racket face is too open at the moment of contact relative to the speed and the trajectory of your swing. Now, obviously the ball that's coming towards you is going to have an impact on this. So if the ball is higher or lower, it's got topspin or slice, it's moving, going faster, or it's going slower, those things are going to have an impact as well, but you can't control the ball that's coming towards you. Your job is to adjust the face of your racket and the speed and the trajectory of your swing relative to that oncoming ball. So if you think, if I'm swinging flat through the ball with my strings are open like that, so this will be neutral, this is open. Depending on the speed that I swing through at, this ball could land in the court or it could fly sailing long. So I can now adjust the angle of my racket face. If I swing at the same speed that I've just done, so the one that was sailing long before, I swing at the same speed, but now because my racket face is closed, it's going to stay lower. So instead of potentially going higher and landing out, it's going to go lower. And then the other variable that we've got is going to be the trajectory of our swing. So I can kind of hit a slice, swing more flat through it that way. I can hit a slice where I'm coming down almost vertically through that way. So if I've got a certain racket face angle and I come forwards like that, the ball isn't going to slice as much. If I've got that racket face angle like that and I really chop down the ball, I'm going to get a lot more bite, a lot more backspin. But again, there's no right or wrong with this. It is about trying to get the angle of this racket face right relative to the ball that's coming towards you. So the way that you work on this is just with experimentation. You understand the physics of the situation, that if you get this wrong, that's what's going to happen. The ball will sail up or it won't get enough spin. So you've got to look at the ball that's coming towards you and try and adjust these variables to make it work. So if you find it's floating long, can you think about maybe just closing the face of that racket? So let's do a little bit now. I'm going to do a little bit of experimentation with my right hand and left hand so you can kind of see 2 options of what it might look like. Let's go. Okay, just going to start out with a really basic feed, doing some cross-court slice backhands. I'm going to make a couple of excuses. I've got new strings, so got a little bit lower in the tension. I am on new courts, so I'm going to complain about that. And the net is definitely a little bit high. So I've got my excuses out of the way, but now with those made, I'm just going to try and slice the ball cross court. And it just comes down to trying to get the angle of the racket face right. Right, if I open the racket face too much, it's going to go up. So I've got to try and close it down relative to the swing speed. Now I can come from high to low, or I can have my racket face a little bit lower as I come through. That was a little bit floaty, but it was okay. But it's all about just playing around with the angle of the racket face like that. I want to show you something else in this position. So far I've talked about the angle of the racket face in one direction, but we can also slice around the inside of the ball or the outside of the ball to get the ball to bend in different directions. So I can get the ball to bend away by coming around the inside, and I can get the ball to bend around that way by coming around the outside. There isn't just one way to hit a slice. You've literally just got to start playing around with this. So I'm going to switch it, and I'm now going to go down the line, but I'm going to start to try and carve around the inside. So you can see when that lands, it then skips out. And this is often a nasty ball for people to deal with. So you can see it's bouncing and then skipping away. I could hit that same ball cross court, so I could still, not very well on that one. That was a complete shank. I can hit it cross court, so I'm still coming around the inside, but it's bouncing that way. And then of course I can come around the outside more. So the bounce when it lands is going to be a little bit different, but it's starting to bend around that way. And it's just part of the experimentation process. Getting a feel for what the angle of the racket face does. I can kind of switch between them, chop on the inside, then come around the outside. If I'm going cross court, I could maybe want to slide it around the outside, and then come to going. Ooh, now that's a perfect example of getting it wrong. I had the racket face way too open, and it floated long. But this is the game we're playing. Just play around with it, have fun. Can you control the angle of your racket face and get the ball to, basically try and get it to do what you want it to do? But you can't expect to go out there and just have it perfect. You've got to play around with it. If it goes long, think it through. What do I need to adjust? And see what happens. So before I switch over and show you some harder balls, I'm going to show you what it looks like with my left hand, because it involves me thinking through it a bit more. So like that one drifted long a little bit. That one was a little bit better. But now it's going to be a more realistic. That one was a little bit floaty. So I need to, there we go. I chopped down on that one a little bit more. No, obviously got that one a little bit wrong. It's a bit better. Drifted long, but the flight was okay. So what do I need to do? Yeah, good adjustment. And this is the process. So just kind of thinking through things. And then you'll see when I try and go down the line with my left hand, I can't get anywhere near as much bite on these, but it's not bad. But I'm just trying to, okay, what does it, what do I have to do to the angle of my racket face? Okay, so you can see I'm clearly not quite as good at coming around the inside. I'll try around the outside, which I definitely find more challenging. But it's just, if I don't try them in this scenario, I'm not suddenly going to arrive in a match and have Nadal's looping backhand. I've got to be prepared to make mistakes here. Okay, and then I'll try going back around the inside out again. So, that's what we're trying to do. Now what I'm going to do is switch it over to a slightly higher ball. Again, I'm going to stick with the left hand, because then it'll be a more realistic reflection of trying to think through the adjustments. Okay, so now we'll move on to a way harder ball. This one's deep, it's heavy, it's spinny, it's going to push me back, and it's going to be a challenge. It's also going to help me to learn more, because the ball that I was just working on, even with my left hand, it was relatively easy. So although it was fun and I was getting reps in and I was kind of playing around with things a little bit, I wasn't necessarily improving. This ball is really more deliberate style practice that's going to help me improve, because obviously if you do things that are too easy, it doesn't cause you to adapt and change. You've got to make things harder. So I've got two ways to deal with this. I can either move back like I'm doing here, and you can see they're going in, but they're not exactly penetrating slices. But I can go back out the way, or I can stand my ground a little bit and try and get the timing. Okay, that wasn't too bad. Try and get the timing there. That one was a little bit off, but here I'm trying to make adjustments. I'm trying to deal with the ball. As the ball comes, I'm trying to think about what I might need to do to get the contact to work. Do I need to come through it? So a little bit more on that one. Okay, so I wasn't quite getting enough space or enough take back on my racket to give me enough space. Now I'm starting to get a little bit more oomph on it. And that was so good. So I've got to maybe get... no. Okay, so that's what it looks like to work through it. On my left hand, you can see some of them were okay. Some of them were terrible shots, but that's what learning's about. Trying to kind of manipulate things. The ones that sailed long, I've got to, okay, consciously think through that. How do I manipulate things? The ones that work really well, so okay, what did I do there? How did that feel? And really try and, teach your brain how to deal with these different types of ball and to make these adjustments. Okay, so the last thing I want to talk about in this video is maybe one of the most important things, because you can potentially go away and work on what I've just described for the next few months, really trying to manipulate the angle of your racket head, kind of thinking through the contact, trying to make the adjustments, and you might not improve as much as you want to, because all this stuff comes down to your eye to hand and eye to foot coordination. And the reality is that a lot of players simply don't have good enough eye-to-hand and eye-to-foot coordination to hit the ball in the way that they want, because tennis is hard. You have to be able to visually predict how fast the ball is traveling, how far it is away, what spins on the ball, so that you can set up and kind of move into the right position. You then have to start your swing at the right time, and you have to be able to adjust your body movements, so using the correct sequence of driving through the back leg, into the hip, into the arm, and get the racket. And you have to have the coordination and ability to manipulate the racket in the way that you want. And that stuff is hard. It takes really good eye-to-hand and eye-to-foot coordination to be able to do it. So if you do work on this stuff and you find you don't see improvements in the way that you want to start to work on those underlying skills, those underlying tennis abilities that are going to be required for you to play strokes in a certain way. If you would like help with that, that's exactly what I help tennis players with. So I talk about the technique and this kind of thing because you need to understand how to practice as well, but ultimately you can only kind of play at the level that your ability will allow. So what I do with players is I teach them brain-based training to improve their visual processing, their ball tracking, their coordination, their body movements, so then that they can hit a bigger variety of shots and get more control over their shots. So if you'd like to learn more about how that stuff works, I've created a masterclass that's going to teach you all about it. So I'll place a link down in the description so you can check it out, and I'll place a link up there in the corner so you can check that out if it's interesting to you. If you've got any questions about this video today, I'd love to hear them, and I will try and answer you as quickly as I can. Also, let me know if there's anything that you would like help with. So is there a particular aspect of your game that you're struggling with? And then I can produce a video and I'll give you a shout out when it's finished, and hopefully I can get you some help that way.